The morning fog rolled through Windermere's harbor like a living thing, wrapping around ship masts and stone buildings with ghostly fingers. Serafina Vale stood at her bedroom window, watching the gray dawn break over the sapphire sea. Her reflection stared back at her. Dark circles under green eyes, hair the color of chestnuts falling loose around her shoulders. She had barely slept, 3 floors below. In the merchant house that had belonged to her family for 5 generations, her father lay dying. Master Garrett Vale had been the most respected spice trader in Windermere for 30 years. His ships brought cinnamon from the southern isles, saffron from the desert kingdoms, and pepper from the Jade Coast. But no exotic cure from any distant land could heal the shadow sickness that consumed him now. The healers called it a magical affliction, rare and incurable. They gave him 3 months at most. Serafina pressed her forehead against the cool glass. 2 months had already passed. Miss Vale, the housekeeper, old Bethany, knocked softly before entering. "Your father is asking for you." The bedroom smelled of medicinal herbs and something else. Something darker that Serafina had come to associate with the illness. Her father's once robust frame had withered to skin and bone. His hands, which used to gesture grandly while telling stories of his trading adventures, now trembled against the blankets. "Serafina, my little seabird." His voice was barely a whisper. "Come closer." She knelt beside the bed, taking his cold hand in both of hers. "I am here, father, always. Should not waste your youth watching an old man fade." He coughed, and Serafina reached for the water glass. "You should be at the harvest festival tonight, dancing with young merchant sons, living your life. There will be other festivals." Her throat tightened. They both knew there would not be many more for them to share. "Promise me something." Garrett's grip strengthened slightly. "Promise you will not spend your life alone after I am gone. Promise you will find love, build your own family. Sell this drafty old house and make your own way in the world." Serafina could not speak past the lump in her throat, so she simply nodded. That evening, despite her reluctance, Bethany convinced her to attend the harvest festival for just an hour. "Your father insisted," the housekeeper said firmly. "He does not want you becoming a ghost before your time." The festival filled the market square with colored lanterns, music, and the smell of roasted chestnuts. Serafina wore a simple blue dress, feeling disconnected from the joy around her. She wandered through the crowds, seeing without really seeing. Hearing laughter that seemed to come from very far away, it was at the edge of the festival. Near the fortune-teller's tent that she first saw him. He stood apart from the crowds, watching the festivities with an expression of amused curiosity. He was tall, impossibly tall, with silver-white hair that caught the lantern light. His clothes marked him as wealthy, a long coat of midnight blue embroidered with silver thread. But there was something unusual about him. His eyes, when they met hers across the square, were the color of storm clouds. Gray and deep and ancient, Serafina felt her breath catch. She should look away, should rejoin the crowds. But she found herself walking toward him instead, to carry a heavy burden for one so young. His voice was smooth and deep, with an accent she could not place. "I could say the same of you." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. "You look at this festival like someone who has seen 1,000 others just like it." A smile touched his lips, a real smile that reached his strange gray eyes. "Perhaps I have. I am Draventher Stormwing. I deal in rare goods and unusual treasures." Serafina Vale. "My family trades in spices." "Ah, yes, the Vale family. I have heard your father is unwell." Something in his tone made her study him more carefully. "What kind of rare goods do you trade?" "The kind most people believe exist only in legends." He gestured to a quiet corner away from the noise. "Walk with me. I sense you have questions, and I may have answers you seek." Serafina knew she should refuse, knew nothing good came from mysterious strangers at festivals. But desperation made people foolish. "What do you know about shadow sickness?" Draventher was quiet for a long moment as they walked along the harbor wall. The festival sounds faded behind them. "I know it is a curse born of old magic. I know that conventional healers cannot cure it. And I know that there is exactly one remedy that can save someone afflicted with it." Her heart began to race. What remedy? A dragon's tear. He said it casually, as if he had suggested chamomile tea. Fresh from the source, mixed with moon water, and drunk before the third full moon of the illness. Serafina stopped walking. Dragons are extinct. They have been for 500 years. Is that what humans tell themselves now? Something flickered across his face, an expression she could not read. How convenient for everyone. You are mocking me. I am not. He turned to face her fully, and in the moonlight, his eyes seemed to glow faintly. I am offering you a trade, Serafina Vale. A dragon's tear for your father's life. And what would you want in return? She tried to keep the hope from her voice. I have no money. My father's fortune is going to healers and medicines. I do not want money. Draventhor stepped closer. I want 7 years. 7 years of what? 7 years of your companionship. You would live in my household, attend social functions with me, travel with me when I require it. Think of it as employment, if you prefer. At the end of 7 years, you would be free to return to your life, and your father would be cured. It was too convenient, too perfect. Seraphine's mind raced through the implications. Just companionship? Nothing else? Nothing you do not freely give. His expression was serious. I am proposing a business arrangement, not a prison sentence. You would have your own quarters, your own freedom, within reason. I simply require someone reliable and intelligent to accompany me. Someone who understands the value of discretion. Why me? Because you are desperate enough to consider an offer that sounds impossible and smart enough to question it. He produced a rolled parchment from inside his coat. This is a binding contract. It will cure your father the moment you sign it. You would begin your service tomorrow at dawn. Serafina took the parchment with shaking hands. The words were written in elegant script, laying out exactly what he had described. 7 years of companionship in exchange for her father's complete recovery from shadow sickness. At the bottom were 2 signature lines. How do I know this is real? How do I know you actually have a dragon's tear? Draventhor smiled, and this time there was something wild in it. Because, Serafina Vale, I am a dragon. Before she could respond, he changed. It happened so quickly she barely saw the transformation. One moment a tall man stood before her, the next a creature of legend filled her vision. Silver blue scales caught the moonlight, wings spread wide enough to block out the stars. Eyes like lightning storms gazing down at her. He was magnificent and terrifying and completely impossible. Then he was human again, standing calmly as if he had not just shattered everything she thought she knew about the world. The contract is real, he said quietly. The cure is real. The choice is yours. Serafina looked at the parchment, at the man who was not a man, at the impossible situation she found herself in. She thought of her father's wasting frame, his whispered hopes that she would live a full life. 7 years seemed like nothing compared to losing him. She found a pen in her pocket. It's the one she used for keeping the household accounts. Her hand only shook a little as she signed her name. The moment the ink dried, power surged through the contract. Golden light enveloped the parchment before it vanished entirely. Draventhor nodded, satisfied. It is done. Your father will wake tomorrow morning cured. And you, Serafina Vale, now belong to me for 7 years. The weight of what she had done settled over her like a heavy cloak. She had just sold 7 years of her life to a dragon. She looked up at Draventhor, trying to find words for the mixture of relief, terror, and strange anticipation swirling inside her. When do we leave? Tomorrow at dawn, he repeated. Pack light. Where we are going, you will need nothing from your old life. As Serafina walked home through the emptying festival, the colored lanterns flickering out one by one, she wondered what kind of world she had just agreed to enter. Behind her, she did not see Draventhor watching from the shadows. An expression of satisfaction and something else, something almost like loneliness. Crossing his ancient face, the dragon had found his companion. Now began the game of whether she would become something more. Dawn broke over Windmere with impossible beauty. Serafina woke to find sunlight streaming through her window, and the sound of her father's laughter echoing up the stairs. She rushed down to find him sitting at the breakfast table, color returned to his cheeks, hands steady as he buttered toast. Garrett stood and embraced her, his arms strong again. I feel like I have been given a second life. The shadow sickness is completely gone. The healers cannot explain it, but I woke this morning feeling better than I have in 20 years. Serafina held her father tight, feeling tears of relief stream down her face. The contract was real. Draventher had kept his word. But now, she had to keep hers. Father, I need to tell you something. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I am leaving today. I have accepted a position with a merchant from the Northern Territories. I will be traveling as his assistant for several years. The lie tasted bitter, but what else could she say? That she had sold 7 years of her life to a dragon? That magical creatures still walked the earth, disguised as wealthy traders. Garrett's joy dimmed with concern. So suddenly. Serafina, you do not have to leave because of me. I am well now. We can rebuild the business together. I want to do this. She forced confidence into her voice. You always taught me to seize opportunities. This man, Mr. Stormwing, he deals in rare goods across many kingdoms. I will learn things that could help our family business in the future. After much discussion and many reassurances, her father reluctantly agreed. By mid-morning, Serafina stood at the harbor with a single traveling bag, watching a ship unlike any other pull into port. Its sails shimmered silver blue, and the wood of its hull seemed to ripple like water under sunlight. Draventher stood at the dock, dressed in traveling clothes of deep gray. In daylight, he looked even more otherworldly. His silver hair moved in a wind that touched nothing else, and those storm cloud eyes tracked her approach with unreadable intensity. You came. He sounded genuinely surprised. But did you think I would break the contract? I thought you might try. A small smile touched his lips. Humans often reconsider impossible bargains in the harsh light of morning. Your father is well? Completely cured. Thank you. The words felt inadequate for the gift of her father's life. Then let us begin. He offered his hand to help her aboard the ship. Welcome to the Storm Chaser. She will take us to my home. The journey took 3 days, though Serafina lost track of time as the ship sailed not just across water but through clouds themselves. On the second day, she realized they were flying, actually flying, the ocean visible far below through gaps in the mist. The crew were all dragon-kind in human form, treating Draventher with deep respect and Serafina with cautious curiosity. On the third dawn, she woke to find them approaching something impossible. A palace floated among the clouds, tethered to nothing, existing in defiance of all natural laws. Towers of white stone spiraled upward, connected by bridges that arced through open air. Gardens grew on floating islands, waterfalls cascaded from nowhere and vanished into mist below. The whole structure glowed with soft golden light, as if the sun itself had taken up residence in the stones. This is Skyhold, Draventher said, appearing beside her at the rail. My home for the past 2,000 years? 2,000? Serafina turned to stare at him. How old are you? Old enough to remember when humans first learned to forge iron? Old enough to have seen kingdoms rise and fall like waves on a shore? Wait, he studied her reaction carefully. Does that frighten you? Everything about this frightens me. She looked back at the floating palace. But I made a promise. Her quarters in Skyhold were more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined. A circular room in one of the towers, with windows on all sides offering views of endless sky and distant mountains. The bed was larger than her entire bedroom in Windmere, covered in silk sheets the color of storm clouds. A wardrobe held clothes in her exact size, all in rich fabrics and elegant designs. How did you know what I would need? She asked when Draventher showed her the room. I have been observing your family for some time. I knew your father was ill. I knew you would do anything to save him. I prepared accordingly. The calculation in his words chilled her. So this was all planned? You targeted me specifically? I needed someone suitable, and you met my requirements. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her reaction. Intelligence, loyalty, desperation, and most importantly, someone whose disappearance would be explained by normal circumstances rather than magical ones. Does knowing that change anything? Serafina set down her bag slowly. You are very honest about being manipulative. I find that honesty about manipulation is less cruel than kind deception. Something flickered across his face. You are not the first human I have made this arrangement with. What happened to the others? They served their time and left. His expression became distant. All except one. But that was a very long time ago. Before Serafina could ask more, he straightened. Rest today. Tomorrow, your duties begin. I expect you dressed for dinner at sunset. We have guests arriving from the Eastern Dragon clans. The next months passed in a blur of impossible experiences. Serafina attended banquets where dragons in human form discussed territorial agreements and trade routes. She learned to recognize different dragon clans. By the color of their eyes and the subtle magic that clung to their human forms, she traveled with Draventhor to floating cities, underground kingdoms, places that existed in the spaces between normal reality. Her role was exactly as he had described. She accompanied him, provided intelligent conversation, helped him navigate social situations where a trusted companion was expected. Dragons, she learned, were intensely social creatures despite their reputation for isolation. Having a human companion was seen as a sign of status and stability, but as the weeks turned to months, something unexpected began to happen. They started actually talking to each other. It began one evening when they returned from a particularly tedious, diplomatic dinner with the Ruby clan. Serafina kicked off the uncomfortable, formal shoes and collapsed onto a couch in the palace library, groaning, if I have to smile through one more lecture about proper tribute protocols, I will throw myself off a cloud. Draventhor, removing his formal coat, actually laughed. Lord Crimson does enjoy hearing himself speak. I believe that dinner speech lasted 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes. I counted. Serafina looked up at him. How do you stand it? All these gatherings, where everyone says nothing of importance, while pretending every word is profound wisdom? I've had 2,000 years to practice patience. He poured 2 glasses of wine from a crystal decanter. Though I confess, having you there made tonight more bearable. Your expression when Lady Scarlet claimed credit for inventing aerial navigation was priceless. She did not invent it. Humans have been using stars for navigation for thousands of years. Try telling her that. He handed her a glass and settled into the chair across from her. Dragons have a complicated relationship with human achievements. We want to believe we are superior, so we rewrite history to support that belief. Serafina sipped the wine, studying him in the firelight. Do you believe that? That dragons are superior? I believe we are different. Longer lived, yes. More powerful in some ways. But I have seen human ingenuity accomplish things no dragon ever conceived. Your kind adapts, innovates, builds upon each generation's knowledge. We dragons tend to stagnate in our immortality. He met her eyes. Your father, for instance, built a trading empire through nothing but intelligence and determination. I respect that more than any dragon born to wealth and power. It was the first time he had spoken to her as an equal rather than an employee. Something shifted between them in that moment, a wall beginning to crack. After that night, their conversations deepened. During long flights between kingdoms, Draventhor told her about the world before human civilization, about the wars between dragon clans, about the magic that once flowed freely through the earth. Serafina shared stories of growing up in Windmere, of her father's trading adventures, of the small human dramas that Draventhor found unexpectedly fascinating. You nearly died because you wanted to save a cat from a tree. He sounded incredulous one afternoon as they walked through Skyhold's floating gardens. You were 12 years old and climbed a tree during a lightning storm? The cat was terrified. Serafina defended herself, laughing at the memory. Besides, I did not die. I just broke my arm in 2 places. Humans are ridiculous creatures. He was smiling as he said it. 6 months into her service, everything changed during a visit to the Crystal Caverns. A dragon stronghold carved into a mountain of quartz. They were attending a celebration of the autumn equinox when Draventhor excused himself to speak with some clan elders. Serafina wandered the caverns alone. marveling at the way light refracted through crystal walls. She found him later in a small grotto, sitting alone and staring at a pool of perfectly still water. Something about his posture, the slump of his shoulders, made him look suddenly vulnerable despite his power. Draventhar. She approached carefully. Are you all right? He did not turn. This place holds memories I would prefer to forget. Serafina sat beside him on the crystal floor. Do you want to talk about it? 300 years ago, I brought someone here. A human woman named Celeste. She was much like you, intelligent, brave, foolishly kind to dragons who did not deserve it. His voice was quiet. I loved her. The admission hung in the air between them. Serafina held her breath, sensing he needed to tell this story. We spent 50 years together. I gave her a dragon's gift, an extension of life, so we could have more time. We were happy. He finally looked at her and his eyes held an ancient pain. Then she chose to leave. The life of immortality, of being forever tied to my world, it was not what she wanted. She asked me to release her, to let her age naturally, to return to her human life. What did you do? I let her go. Because I loved her, I let her walk away. He turned back to the pool. She lived another 30 years as a normal human, married a merchant, had children, grew old. I watched from a distance, making sure she was safe. When she died, surrounded by her grandchildren, I was there in the shadows. She never knew. Serafina felt tears prick her eyes. I am sorry. After Celeste, I swore I would never let myself care for a human again. I would keep arrangements purely transactional, maintain emotional distance, protect myself from that kind of pain. He stood abruptly. We should return to this celebration. But as they walked back through the crystal corridors, Serafina realized something important. Draventhar had shared his deepest wound with her. Whatever walls he claimed to maintain, they were already crumbling. The real shift came 2 weeks later, during an attack on Skyhold. Serafina woke to the sound of roaring and the palace shaking. She rushed to her window to see dragons circling the palace, their scales black as coal, breathing fire at the defensive shields protecting the floating structure. The Obsidian clan had come for war. Draventhar burst into her room already in his defensive armor, scales shimmering on his skin even in human form. Stay here. The shields will protect this tower. What is happening? Old grievances and new ambitions. Lord Nightwing wants my territory. Stay inside. He turned to leave. Draventhar, wait. Serafina grabbed his arm. Be careful. He looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face, something unreadable passing through his eyes. I have survived 2,000 years of dragon politics, Serafina. I will survive this. What? But as he left, Serafina could not shake her fear. She watched from the window as Draventhar transformed into his full dragon form, silver blue and magnificent, joining the battle in the skies around Skyhold. The fight was brutal and beautiful, dragons wheeling through clouds, magic crackling between them like lightning. Then she saw it. 3 obsidian dragons converging on Draventhar from different angles. A coordinated attack meant to overwhelm him. One of them breathed black fire that shattered his defensive shields. Serafina did not think. She grabbed the emergency beacon Draventhar had given her months ago, for use only in the direst circumstances, and activated it. The signal would call every ally within 100 miles to Skyhold's defense. She also did something else, something she had learned in her months among dragonkind. She stepped onto her balcony, held up the contract mark on her wrist where Draventhar's magic had bound her, and shouted words in the ancient dragon language. By bond of contract, by debt of honor, I call the Skylord to his companion's aid. It was not magic she should have been able to use. Humans could not command dragons, but the contract was a magical bond, and she gambled that it worked both ways. Draventhar felt the pull immediately. Her voice in his mind, her presence demanding his attention. It distracted him for only a moment, but it was enough to dodge the killing blow meant for his heart. The black fire scorched his wing instead of his chest. More importantly, the allies began arriving. Draventhar's fellow Silver Clan dragons, the Ruby Clan, who owed him favors. even a few independent dragons who respected his territory rights. The Obsidian clan found themselves suddenly outnumbered and retreated into the storm clouds. When Draventhar returned to the palace, wounded but alive, he went straight to Seraphine's tower. She was waiting on the balcony, shaking with adrenaline and fear. "That was incredibly stupid," he said, landing on the balcony in human form, blood seeping from wounds on his side. "You could have drawn their attention to you. You could have been killed. You were going to die. I am a dragon. We are hard to kill. You were about to become the exception." Seraphina grabbed medical supplies from her room, hands shaking. "Sit down. Let me see those wounds." As she cleaned and bandaged his injuries using the skills she had learned helping healers in Windmere, neither spoke. But Draventhar watched her face with an intensity that made her nervous. "Why did you help me?" he finally asked. Seraphine's hands stilled. "Because despite this being a contract, despite you basically purchasing my companionship, despite all the complications and impossibilities, I care about you. I did not want to watch you die, Seraphina." Her name was almost a prayer on his lips. She looked up and found his face closer than expected. "We should not," she whispered. "I know." But he was leaning closer. "The contract says, I give nothing, I do not freely. Give, and I would never take. What is not freely given?" His hand cupped her cheek. "But if you were to give freely, if you wanted this as much as I do," Seraphina closed the distance between them, answering with a kiss that felt like falling and flying simultaneously. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, everything had changed between them. "This is a terrible idea," Draventhar said, resting his forehead against hers.
The worst."
Seraphina agreed. "I swore I would never let myself care for a human again. I swore I would never fall for someone who purchased 7 years of my life. We are both fools." He was smiling as he said it, his thumb tracing circles on her cheek. "What do we do now?" Draventhar pulled back slightly, his expression becoming serious. "Now we figure out how to navigate this very complicated situation. You still have 6 years on your contract. I still have enemies who would use you against me. And we both have to decide what we really want from this." "I want you," Seraphina said simply. "Everything else we will figure out together." For the first time in 300 years, Draventhar let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, this time could be different. The year that followed transformed Skyhold from a lonely palace into a home. Seraphina and Draventhar stopped pretending their relationship was purely contractual. In public, they maintained the appearance of master and companion. But in private, they were simply themselves. Two beings from different worlds learning to love each other. Seraphina learned dragon customs and politics, becoming not just Draventhar's companion, but his trusted advisor. Her human perspective helped him see solutions to problems that dragonkind's rigid traditions had obscured. When the Emerald clan threatened war over water rights to a shared mountain spring, it was Seraphina who suggested a rotating schedule rather than the traditional combat challenge. Draventhar, in turn, showed her wonders she had never imagined. They flew together through auroras in the far north, swam in lakes that existed between dimensions, visited dragon gatherings in places human maps did not show. He taught her about magic, and was surprised to discover she had a natural talent for certain spells. "You should have been born with dragon blood," he said one afternoon, after she successfully conjured protective shields around the garden. "Your magical aptitude is remarkable for a human. Maybe I am just a good student." She grinned at him. "Or maybe you are an excellent teacher."
Ow.
"I am an adequate teacher at best. You, however, are extraordinary." But beneath the happiness, a shadow grew. The contract still had 5 years remaining, and neither wanted to acknowledge what that meant. Was Seraphina only staying because she had to? Would her feelings survive past the obligation? And what of Draventhar's fear that she would leave like Celeste, choosing a human life over immortality beside him? The tension came to a head during a visit from Draventhar's oldest friend, a dragon named Corvus, who had known him for over 1,500 years. Corvus was sharp-tongued and observant, with scales like polished obsidian and eyes that missed nothing. "So this is the human who has captured our Silver Lord's heart," Corvus said, circling Serafina during a formal dinner. Tell me, girl, what will you do when the contract ends? Corvus Draventhar warned. It is a fair question. Corvus settled into human form across from them. You have three options as I see it. 1. Stay because you choose to, accepting the gift of extended life and remaining by his side. 2. Leave, as Celeste did, breaking his heart and returning to your brief human existence. 3. Continue the contract forever, never truly choosing, trapped in obligation, disguised as love. Serafina set down her wineglass carefully. Those are not my only options. Oh. Enlighten me. I could stay until the contract ends, and leave for a time to experience life without obligation, and return if my feelings remain true. I could negotiate a new arrangement where I keep more of my human identity while still being part of his world. I could ask him to give me the gift of extended life now, and spend the remaining contract years as equals rather than master and companion. She met Corvus's gaze steadily. You present only extremes because you want to test whether I have truly thought this through, Corvus laughed, a sound like distant thunder. Perhaps there is hope for you yet, human. Draventhor, she has claws hidden beneath that gentle exterior. But the conversation had planted seeds of doubt in both their minds. That night, lying in Draventhor's arms in the tower room that had become theirs, Serafina finally voiced the question that haunted her. Do you trust that my feelings are real? Or do you think I am just making the best of the contract? Draventhor was quiet for a long time, his hand absently tracing patterns on her shoulder. I trust that you believe your feelings are real. I question whether they would survive without the contract binding you here. The words stung, but Serafina understood them. You think I have convinced myself I love you because it is easier than resenting the situation. Have you not wondered the same thing? She had, late at night when sleep would not come, when she thought about the life she had left behind in Windmere. Every day, she admitted. But then you smile at something ridiculous, or tell me stories about ancient history, or hold me like you are afraid I will disappear, and I know this is real. Celeste said similar things. His voice was barely a whisper. She promised she would never leave. Then she did. Serafina sat up, turning to face him in the darkness. I am not Celeste. I know. Do you? Because it feels like you are waiting for me to break your heart, like you have already decided I will leave. So you are protecting yourself by never fully trusting this. She felt tears building. I cannot compete with a ghost Draventhor. I cannot prove my love to someone who has already decided it is temporary. He sat up as well, silver hair gleaming in the moonlight through the windows. What do you want from me, Serafina? To pretend 300 years of pain never happened? To forget that humans and dragons live on different timescales, have different needs, different worlds? I want you to believe that what we have is worth the risk. That maybe, just maybe, this time it can work. They stared at each other in the darkness. Both afraid, both hurting, both wanting something they were terrified to fully reach for. The argument remained unresolved, creating a distance between them that had not existed before. They still functioned perfectly in public, still fulfilled the contract's obligations, but in private. A wall had grown where there had been intimacy. It was in this fragile state that the Obsidian clan attacked again. This time, it did not come with an army. They came with assassination. Serafina was in the library when the poison hit her system. She had been reading a book on dragon history, sipping tea that had been delivered by a new servant. The pain started as a mild stomach ache, then rapidly intensified until she collapsed. Gasping for air, Draventhar found her minutes later, drawn by an instinct he could not explain. He knew immediately what had happened. Shadowbane, a poison specifically designed to kill the magically gifted. Useless against full dragons, but deadly to humans with magical potential? No, no, no. He gathered her into his arms, his healing magic flooding through her, trying to counteract the poison. Stay with me. Serafina, stay with me. Draventhor. Her voice was barely audible. Contract. Damn the contract. I love you. I love you, and I cannot lose you. Do you hear me? I cannot. Tears he had not shed in centuries streamed down his face. Please, Serafina. Please stay. Contract, she repeated, weaker now. Break it. Let me choose. Understanding dawned. The contract bound her life force to specific terms. To save her, he had to release her completely. Risk that she would use her freedom to leave. Trust that love was stronger than magical obligation. It was the hardest decision he had ever made. With shaking hands, Draventhor spoke the words in the ancient language, the words that would dissolve the contract 5 years early. The magical bindings that tied Seraphina to Skyhold. That guaranteed her 7 years of service, that kept her from simply walking away. All of it unraveled, and as the contract broke, his healing magic could finally work properly without fighting against the binding terms. Seraphina gasped, her eyes flying open, color returning to her cheeks as the poison was purged from her system. They held each other on the library floor for long minutes, both crying, both shaking with relief and residual fear. You broke the contract, Seraphina finally said. I had to save you. You could have lost everything. I could have left the moment I recovered. Draventhor pulled back to look at her face. I know. I decided you were worth the risk. Fresh tears spilled down Seraphine's cheeks. You trust me. I trust you. I trust this. I trust that what we have is real, even without magic forcing it to exist. He cupped her face in both hands. Seraphina Vale, I love you. Not because of any contract, not because you are convenient or obligated to stay. I love you because you are stubborn and brilliant and brave enough to call a dragon for help when he is too stupid to ask. I love you because you make me believe that maybe this time it can work. The contract is broken, she said, taking his hands in hers. I am free to leave whenever I want. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. You are, then I choose to stay. She smiled through her tears. Not for another 7 years or 5 years or any specific time. I choose to stay for as long as we both want this. I choose to build a life with you here between the clouds in your impossible floating palace. I choose you, Draven, their Stormwing, every day, for as long as forever means for us. The kiss they shared was different from all the others. There was no contract binding them, no obligation forcing proximity, no magical chains disguising themselves as companionship. There was only choice, pure and simple and terrifying and beautiful. I want to offer you something, Draventhor said when they finally pulled apart. The gift I gave Celeste. An extension of life, not immortality like dragons have, but centuries instead of decades. You would age slowly, have time to see the world change, to build something lasting, but only if you want it. Only if you choose it freely. Seraphina thought of her father, healthy and happy in Windmere. She thought of the human life she had left behind, the normal existence she could return to. She thought of the library full of books she had not yet read, the floating gardens she tended with Draventhor, the palace that had become her home, the dragon who had become her heart. Yes, she said. I choose yes. I choose this life, this world, this love. I choose you. The magic that flowed between them as Draventhor shared his life force was warm and golden, like sunlight made liquid. Seraphina felt something fundamental shift inside her, her heartbeat slowing slightly, her senses sharpening, the world becoming more vivid and alive than she had ever experienced. When it was complete, they were no longer master and companion, no longer bound by contract or obligation. They were simply two beings who had chosen each other across all the differences and impossibilities, who had decided that love was worth whatever risks it required. Later, much later, after the servants who had betrayed them to the Obsidian clan were discovered and dealt with, after the palace security was reinforced, after messages were sent to every dragon clan making it clear that Seraphina was under Draventhor's permanent protection, they stood together on the highest balcony of Skyhold. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in shades of gold and crimson. Seraphina leaned against Draventhor, his arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her head. What do we do now? She asked. Now we live. We build a life together without timers or contracts or predetermined endings. We figure it out as we go, make mistakes, argue about stupid things, and love each other through all of it. He turned her in his arms to face him. We stop being afraid of what might go wrong and start believing in what could go right. That sounds terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, he agreed. Are you ready? Serafina looked at the man who had been a stranger, then a master, then a lover, and finally a partner. She thought about the merchant's daughter from Windermere, who had signed a contract in desperation, found something far more valuable than she had bargained for. Yes, she said, standing on her toes to kiss him, as the sun painted the sky in colors that matched the joy in her heart. I am ready. And so, in a palace that floated among clouds, a dragon and a human began their real story. Not one bound by contracts or obligations, but one written freely, one day at a time. In the language of choice and trust and love that had learned to exist without conditions, the dragon had found his companion. The companion had found her home. And together, they discovered that sometimes the best stories are the ones that begin when you are finally free to write them yourself.